Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So, today's mission is really pulling back the curtain on what I'd call the ultimate professional gauntlet.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the assessment of professional competence interview, the APC, run by the Australian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, or, the AIQS.
Right. It's a huge deal in the industry.
Yeah, and we've got our hands on this really fascinating, highly detailed set of presentation slides crafted by an actual experienced assessor for the AIQS. So this isn't just theory. This is the insider's playbook.
It really is. It's the exact rubric they use to evaluate these professionals.
Right. The people who basically hold the keys to these multi-million and sometimes billion-dollar construction budgets.
Yeah.
So whether you are out there actively prepping for your own APC certification or, you're just insanely curious about the hidden financial mechanics that keep every skyscraper and hospital you've ever walked into from just going completely bankrupt, this is basically your exclusive coaching session.
I love that framing because it is a fascinating world, right? I mean, most of us just see the physical materials of a mega project. We walk by and we see the glass, the steel, the concrete.
Just the shiny finished product?
Exactly. But long before the first shovel even hits the dirt, a quantity surveyor, a QS, is drafting this invisible blueprint. And it's made entirely of risk models and cost limits and really hard financial boundaries.
Right.
So this interview assessment, it separates the pure theorists, the ones who just, read the textbooks, from the battle-tested practitioners who can actually defend that invisible blueprint under some really intense pressure.
Yeah, and to understand the mindset of this profession, we really have to look at the arena they're stepping into. Because looking at these assessor slides, the structural rigidity of the interview room itself is just intense.
Oh, it's incredibly strict.
Right. Like if you are going for the standard member grade, the MAIQS, your entire professional worth is evaluated in exactly 45 minutes.
Yep, 45 minutes to prove your career.
And the breakdown is surgically precise. You get a 5-minute welcome, then a strict 10-minute opening speech from the candidate.
Right.
Then 20 minutes of just relentless competency grilling from the panel. And finally, 10 minutes of general questions.
And, if you're aiming for the certified quantity surveyor tier, the CQS, they actually extend the torture to 60 minutes.
Oh, wow, an extra 15 minutes.
Yeah, the competency questioning jumps up to 35 minutes. And, there is absolutely nowhere to hide when a panel of industry veterans is just dissecting your financial logic for over half an hour.
I can't even imagine.
But the tone for all of that, it's really set in the very first hurdle, which is that 10-minute opening speech.
Right. Let's talk about that speech. Because looking at the prep material, it's not just a casual, hey, tell us about yourself icebreaker.
No, definitely not.
It's essentially an executive summary of your entire career. You have to concisely cover, your education, any other professional memberships, and your specific work experience. And they want really granular details.
They want the hard facts.
Yeah, what was the exact nature and dollar value of your projects? Which specific forms of contract were you administering?
Like the standard international FIDI contracts, or maybe local public works agreements, PWAs.
Exactly. And did you handle the messy stuff, like mid-project design variations, or those complex cost-plus arrangements?
Right, where the client is paying for all the materials plus a set profit margin? It gets complicated.
So whatever you choose to highlight in that initial pitch, that basically becomes the menu for the panel.
That's a great way to put it. You are literally handing them a list of topics to cross-examine you on later.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And this is why the assessor's slides emphasize brutal preparation. We're talking mandatory group discussions, running through at least 3 full mock interviews.
3.
At least 3. And you have to actively train yourself to manage adrenaline and interview stress. You have to maintain unwavering eye contact or camera focus if it's virtual. And crucially, you are instructed never to guess. If the panel asks a convoluted question, assuming you know what they mean is a fatal error in this exam, you have to pause, take a breath, and ask for clarification.
Okay, but I have to challenge one very specific rule in this section of the slides, though.
Sure, go for it.
It dictates, in bold letters, that candidates must utilize exactly 10 minutes for their opening speech.
Yep, 10 minutes.
Why is such an arbitrary line in the sand? If someone can summarize their massive infrastructure experience brilliantly in 8 minutes, shouldn't they be rewarded for brevity? I mean, is a literal stopwatch really the ultimate measure of a financial professional?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the time limit isn't really about the clock.
Okay, what is it about?
It's a stress test of professional judgment.
Mhm.
Precision in time management is used as a direct proxy for precision in cost management.
Oh, I see.
Because quantity surveyors, they are dealing with absolute mountains of complex data. You've got thousands of material costs, fluctuating labor rates, really dense contract clauses.
Just a sea of numbers.
Exactly. So if a candidate cannot distill years of that complexity into a concise, prioritized, exactly 10-minute summary, an assessor is going to immediately doubt their ability to report effectively to a demanding client.
Because if a developer asks you for a 10-page financial summary on a skyscraper, and you hand them a 12-page report or an 8-page report that leaves out, like, the structural steel budget,
Yeah.
you've completely failed the brief.
Absolutely. You haven't demonstrated control, and control is everything in this field.
Right.
Which really transitions perfectly into how the panel actually grades that control through the competency matrix.
Yeah, let's get into the matrix. Because the candidates have to submit this application filling guide, right?
Yes.
And it proves they have high proficiency across a minimum of 8 specific competency units. They have to track everything: the employer, project type, the period, value, specific duties. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And it's not just general office skills. The slides specifically mention excluding support competencies, like basic IT.
Right. They don't care if you can use Microsoft Word.
No. They want to see the heavy lifting. You have to prove deep experience across 3 core areas.
Let's break those down.
Okay, so core 1 is the foundational stuff. That's design, cost advice, and cost planning.
Okay.
Core 2 moves into contract documentation and procurement. So basically how you price and actually buy the work.
Right. Getting the contract signed.
Exactly. And then core 3 is contract administration, which is managing the money once construction actually starts, dealing with progress payments to the builders and agonizing over budget variations when things inevitably change.
But the anchor for all of this, the absolute heaviest hitter in the assessment, at least according to the slides, is core 1.
Oh, without a doubt.
And the assessor's slides draw this very distinct, almost philosophical line between 2 approaches in core 1. There's comparative cost planning, which they describe as costing a design. And then there's elemental cost planning, which is designing to a cost.
Yeah, that distinction is crucial.
Okay, let's unpack the difference there because it feels central to the whole profession.
It really is. Like, costing a design sounds very reactive. To me, it's like going to a lavish restaurant, letting everyone order whatever truffles and expensive wine they want, and then just waiting for the bill at the end to see the damage.
That is exactly what it is.
But designing to a cost, the elemental cost planning, that's like walking into the restaurant, slapping exactly $50 on the table, and telling the chef, look, I want a 3-course meal, figure out how to make it work within this limit.
I love that. That $50 analogy captures the entire ethos of a modern quantity surveyor.
Really?
Yeah, because historically, the profession used to just measure up whatever the architect drew and hand the client a massive bill at the end.
The reactive approach.
Right. But today, the QS is the person holding that $50 at the door.
Yeah.
You establish the overall cost limit for the whole project before anything is even drawn.
Okay.
Then you take that limit and break it down into specific cost targets for every single element. So you have a target for the foundation, a target for the roof, a target for the interior finishes. And I assume those elemental targets have some flex, right? As long as you don't blow the total $50.
Oh, definitely.
Like, if the client suddenly decides they absolutely must have premium Italian marble in the lobby, the target for that specific element spikes.
Yeah.
So you have to go into the kitchen and tell the chef to serve cheaper side dishes.
Exactly.
Find savings in the bathroom fixtures or the lighting to offset the massive cost of that marble.
That balancing act is the day-to-day reality of the job. It requires relentless cost checks at every stage of the design to make sure the architect hasn't accidentally designed a building the client literally cannot afford.
Right.
And the slides actually tie this directly to industry frameworks, specifically the Royal Institute of British Architects, or RIBA Plan of Work.
Ah, yeah, I saw that in the notes.
They mention the evolution from the older 2007 outline to the 2020 template, which maps a project all the way from stage 0, which is strategic definition, all the way to stage 7, handover and use.
So logically, the earlier the QS gets involved in those stages, the better.
It's massively better.
Because if you wait until stage 4 technical design to tell the architect that their amazing glass facade is going to blow the budget by $20 million, You're just the enemy at that point.
You're the bad guy ruining the art.
Right. You have to set those elemental parameters way back in stage 1 or 2 to keep that $50 limit realistic.
And that requires essentially predicting the future. Because to control the budget that early on, you have to know exactly what it costs to build something that doesn't even exist yet.
Right. You're estimating based on thin air.
Which is exactly where the assessors grill candidates on their estimating mechanics.
And the slides cover several of these preliminary estimating methods used when you only have rough sketches, right?
Yep, quite a few.
There's the conference method, where experts basically sit in a room and use their combined intuition.
Which is a bit of a guess, really.
Yeah. And there's the financial method, using net present value. The unit method, which is super broad-like, estimating a hospital's cost based purely on how many beds it will have.
Right, very high level.
But the two methods the slides focus heavily on for setting those early hard boundaries are the superficial area method and the story enclosure method. Let's talk about those.
Okay, so the superficial area method, that calculates cost based simply on square meterage. But the multiplier drastically changes based on the function of the space.
Okay, give me an example.
The slides give a really stark one. A basement car park might be calculated at, say, $300 per square meter. But the apartment living space sitting right above it is calculated at $950 per square meter.
Okay, that makes intuitive sense. I mean, an apartment has plumbing and drywall and intricate lighting and kitchens, whereas a parking garage is basically just a concrete box.
Exactly. It's much cheaper per square meter to build.
But then the story enclosure method introduces a whole different level of math. It uses these weighting factors.
Yes.
And the assessor's example shows the physical area of different floors being multiplied by specific weights. So a standard roof area gets a weighting factor of 1. The ground floor gets a 2. But the basement floor area gets hit with a weighting factor of 3. Why does the basement carry so much mathematical weight in the estimate?
Because digging a hole in the ground is arguably the most financially dangerous part of construction.
Really? Just dig in the hole?
Oh, absolutely. When you go subterranean, you hit completely unknown variables. You might find solid bedrock that requires expensive blasting, or you hit an underground river.
Oh, wow.
Or unstable soil that requires massive retaining walls and extreme waterproofing. So that weighting factor of 3 mathematically forces the estimate to absorb that risk before anyone has even done a detailed soil test.
That is so smart. So getting the spatial measurements right is really the foundation of the entire financial model.
It's everything.
But this brings us to what I can only describe as an acronym soup in the source material regarding what an area actually is.
Oh, here we go.
Right. The slides define 3 major ones: GIA, GEA, and NIA.
Yes, the big 3.
Let's run through them. Gross internal area, the GIA, is measured to the inside face of the perimeter walls. It includes the parking and the elevator shafts, but excludes open roofs.
Correct.
Then the GEA, gross external area, pushes the tape measure all the way to the outside skin of the building, includes inbound balconies, excludes open roof parking.
Yep.
And then the NIA, the net internal area, is strictly the usable space. It actively excludes the toilets, the stairwells, common corridors, and tenancy separate walls.
You've got them all.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, though. If I'm renting an office, I only care about the space where I can put my desks. So why on earth do we have 3 different acronyms for measuring the exact same building?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, a candidate must explain to the panel why these different acronyms matter to completely different people.
Okay.
A massive construction project is an ecosystem of stakeholders, and they all need fundamentally different data to survive.
Right, so going back to our restaurant analogy, the leasing agent doesn't care about the kitchen or the hallways.
Yeah.
They only care about how many dining tables they can cram into the room to actually make money.
Exactly.
So they strictly need the net internal area, the NIA, to calculate their rental yields.
But, and this is where candidates trip up, the main contractor constructing the building cannot use the NIA.
Because they're building the walls, too.
Exactly. If they order materials based only on the usable office space, they won't have enough glass or steel to build the actual exterior walls. They absolutely need the gross external area, the GEA, to buy the facade.
Okay, that makes sense.
Meanwhile, the client paying for the whole thing needs the gross internal area, the GIA.
Right.
That's so they can benchmark the overall construction costs per square meter against their other properties.
Wow. Okay.
So a candidate who mixes up GEA and NIA during the interview will instantly lose the panel's trust, because confusing those in the real world means ordering millions of dollars of the wrong materials.
And to prevent that kind of catastrophic confusion, the industry uses universal rulebooks. Because you can't just have cost planners making up their own math on the fly.
No, you have chaos.
So the slides highlight several standards published by the RICS, the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. There's CESMM4 for civil engineering.
Yep.
There's POMI from 1979 for international principles. But the absolute Bible for building work seems to be the new rules of measurement, specifically NRM1 for early elemental cost planning and NRM2, which apparently replaced the old SMM7 for detailed measurement.
And there's NRM3 for maintenance too, but assessors will relentlessly test a candidate's fluency in NRM1.
It seems huge.
It's not just a casual guideline. It is a rigid mathematical structure for building an estimate so that absolutely no hidden costs fall through the cracks.
Yeah, the slides lay out the exact NRM1 formula. And honestly, applying our $50 dinner analogy to this really helps visualize the logic.
Let's do it.
Okay, so first, you calculate the facilitating works estimate. That's the cost of demolishing the old building or clearing the site. In our restaurant, that's paying someone to clear and clean the table before you even sit down.
Perfect.
Then you add the building works estimate, which is the actual physical structure, so the meal itself.
Right.
To that, you add the main contractor's preliminaries, which covers site security, scaffolding, and cranes.
Once you have that subtotal, the rulebook forces you to add the main contractor's overhead and profit as a distinct, completely separate line item. That gives you your works cost estimate.
Wait, why do they separate the contractor's profit and overhead from the actual building works? Why not just have one number?
Because it provides crucial transparency. If you just bundle everything together into one massive number, the client can't tell if a wall is expensive because the bricks are super rare, or because the contractor is just charging a massive hidden markup.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, separating it forces the QS to interrogate the profit margins just as aggressively as the material costs.
Okay, so you have the works cost. Then NRM1 dictates you add the project and design team fees, paying the architects and engineers.
Right.
Then you add any other development costs, like local council taxes.
Yeah.
That finally brings you to the base cost estimate.
But you still aren't done.
No. The final mandatory step is adding the risk allowance. And the slides categorize these risks so meticulously. Design development risks, construction risks, and employer change risks.
And that risk allowance is the buffer that keeps the project alive when reality hits.
Yeah.
And the assessors, they test a candidate's grasp of this reality with hyper-specific scenario questions.
Like what?
While the slides list actual questions panels use, they might ask, how do you validate cost data when building in a remote location versus a major city? Or they'll ask about international frameworks, like what is the International Construction Measurement Standards, the ICMS?
Right. But there was one sample question that really stood out to me. The panel asks, explain the value engineering work you carried out for a toilet partition.
Ah, yes, the classic toilet partition question.
I was staring at that slide for a while. Why would an expert panel evaluating a professional for a certification that lets them manage billion-dollar budgets spend their precious 35 minutes asking about a bathroom stall?
Because a skyscraper isn't just one giant decision. It's a million micro decisions stacked on top of each other.
Okay.
Anyone can open a spreadsheet, lower every single number by 10%, and claim they value engineered a project. But asking about a toilet partition forces the candidate down into the dirt. It tests if they understand the physical reality of what they're actually pricing.
So if a candidate says, oh, I swapped the solid core partitions for cheap hollow plastic and saved $5,000, the panel knows they are a massive liability.
Exactly.
Because cheap plastic in a high-traffic public building will just break in 6 months and then cost the client 10 times as much in maintenance and replacement.
You nailed it. True value engineering isn't just slashing the upfront cost. It's optimizing the value over the entire life cycle of the asset. The toilet partition question proves whether you are just an accountant looking at a spreadsheet or a true construction professional who understands material durability, hygiene standards, and long-term facility management.
That level of granular knowledge gives a quantity surveyor immense power. I mean, you are advising the client on where to spend their money, you are deciding which contractor's bid is the most realistic, and during construction, you are the one validating the actual progress payments.
You're touching all the money.
You are the gatekeeper to millions of dollars. How does the industry ensure these professionals don't abuse that power?
Which brings us perfectly to the unseen pillar of the profession, and really the final critical topic the assessor slides cover, ethics and professionalism.
Yeah, the rules of the game.
The AIQS enforces a very strict code of professional conduct. Members must undertake continuous training, known as CPD, continuing professional development, just to keep their skills sharp.
And there's a complaint handling and appeal procedure mentioned too.
Right. It's not just about paying your membership fees, which, by the way, the slides note range from $0 for a student up to over $737 for a fellow.
Quite a range.
Yeah, but it's about remaining relevant and accountable. The slides describe ethics as the heart of professionalism, rooted in public trust, clarity, and consistency, always providing the best service to the client.
But they also include a very practical ethics test scenario for candidates in the slides. And I want your take on this.
Sure.
The scenario is, you are about to negotiate a final account for a contractor, and he invites you out for lunch. Will you go? And the definitive answer provided in the slides is a hard no.
Correct. Hard no.
But I want to push back on this. Wait, it's just a lunch. In almost every other corporate environment, grabbing a sandwich with a vendor or a client is just basic networking. Why is it treated like a cardinal sin here?
It comes back to that concept of public trust from the slides and the specific duty of a quantity surveyor during a final account. The final account is the ultimate reckoning at the end of a project. You are determining exactly how much of the client's money the contractor is finally going to walk away with. In that moment, you are acting as an absolutely impartial judge.
But even if you just talk about, like, golf over a $20 sandwich, is it really that bad?
Yes, because the perception is compromised, and perception is the reality in financial governance.
I see.
If a dispute arises months later and the client finds out you were having private lunches with the contractor while negotiating their payout, your professional credibility is completely destroyed.
They'll think you took a bribe, even if you didn't.
Exactly. The client needs absolute certainty that your mathematical judgments were bulletproof, based entirely on the NRM1 rulebook, and completely uninfluenced by a free meal. The boundary must remain absolute to protect the integrity of that invisible blueprint we talked about at the beginning.
Wow, it really is a massive responsibility. Looking at the scope of this AIQS APC interview, it is clearly not just a math test.
Far from it.
It is a grueling evaluation of strategic foresight. It's a test of a candidate's ability to communicate complex, high-stakes data clearly under hostile pressure, and really a test of their unwavering ethical backbone.
It's the ultimate filter. It separates the people who simply memorize the acronyms from the true professionals who can actually defend an elemental cost plan, navigate the physical realities of construction, and maintain total impartiality when millions of dollars are on the table.
So what does this all mean for you listening? It means the next time you walk into a sprawling airport terminal or a towering office building, you aren't just looking at architecture. You are standing inside a physical manifestation of carefully managed cost targets, weighting factors, and rigid professional standards that literally held the whole thing together.
It gives you a whole new appreciation for the built environment, doesn't it?
It really does. But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own. We've spent this entire deep dive exploring how elemental cost planning and strict measurement rules govern the most complex structures on Earth. What if we applied that exact same framework to our personal and professional lives?
Oh, that's interesting.
Think about it. Instead of costing a design, just looking at our credit card bills at the end of the month or wondering where all our free time went at the end of the week, what if we practiced designing to a cost?
Setting the limits up front.
Exactly. What if we set a strict limit for our energy, our time, or our finances up front and ruthlessly engineered our daily habits to fit within those boundaries? It seems to work for skyscrapers. It might just work for us. Something to think about. Okay,